I'd like to hear from each of the presenters now. We'll start at A and go down the list. Andy, you've got 3 minutes.
Right, you've heard from the young people, roll on the old git, starting with me. That went down well. Yeah, session A was run 3 times. Thanks very much to everybody who participated. We had very, very good participation. There was no right or wrong answer to this particular session, but we got a lot of good ideas coming out and a lot of recurring themes. I just want to say thank you to my helpers, Les Boyce, Claire Bell and Roger Booth, and my commitment to you is that I'll be writing up all of the ideas and feeding them into the process. So, who do we want to attract to ringing was the first part of the question, and the second was how do we do it? Who do you want to attract to ringing? Answers varied. I think most groups came up with the anyone answer. If you're born with a pulse and you can walk or stand up, then you're fine. Not a very targeted approach. But actually, when it was refined down, it was actually worked out that certain core needs will vary by locality. But what that means is that it wasn't possible to say we need more young ringers or we need more old ringers. It pretty much depends what you've got. If you've got lots of old ringers and are all about to die, then you probably need some younger ones. If you've got lots of young ringers who are about to go off to university, you probably need some older ringers. So one of the themes that came up was about diversity and balance. And the fact is that only you know what you need. And in a marketing and sales sense, it depends where you are. So what have you got now and what do you need? And work out who you therefore need to recruit. Sounds like a cop-out, but you can't say it's 25-year-olds from Brighton. It's not that precise. There were, however, certain characteristics of ringers, and this is where there was lots of commonality. You as a group wanted 3 groups. People who are able to commit, people who fit into the group, they're easy to get on with, they're coordinated, they can handle a bell, they're mentally nimble enough to actually learn change ringing, if you want to go there. They may be musical. They're what people called sticky. So in other words, you don't just recruit them, but they stay. You want sticky people that are going to stick with you. And wouldn't it be great if you could assess what they looked like? And it's come up rather a lot that someone comes along saying, yes, I'd like to ring, and you don't know whether they're going to be good, bad, or indifferent. But one of the big themes that came up was, why not have it as a 2-way street? You're not only assessing them, they're assessing you. Do they want to be ringers? And a couple of ideas came up around, featuring the commitment people talk about. How attractive is it? You say, come and try ringing, come and try ringing. And what you're going to do is, twice on a Sunday, once a week, lots of weddings and lots of other times we expect you to turn up and ring. And if you don't turn up, we're going to moan at you when we do see you. You know, is this an attractive thing? Going off on a tangent, you're probably all familiar with brainstorming. You know, you think of good ideas. I've done a reverse brainstorm. Reverse brainstorming is more fun. That's where you say, instead of how do we do X, you say, how do we really screw X up? And if you do a reverse brainstorm, so if you say, how's it best to attract and retain people to ringing? You could say, what's the best way to really mess this up? And you come up with things like, you're unfriendly to people when they walk in, you isolate learners, you teach them on their own, you ignore them when they come in, you yell at them when they go wrong, you moan at them when they don't turn up, etc., etc. If you wanted to paint a picture of how not to do it, my hypothesis to you is that that's pretty much what goes on at the moment. But that is my personal view. But the good thing is about a reverse brainstorm is you reverse the factors to come up with the positives. 3 minutes is blown, sorry, I've got a bit off on a tangent there. And a slightly controversial point, or is it? In a sales and marketing sense, who is your customer and how do you sell to them? You need to work out locally, is going to church part of the deal? Because it makes a big difference to your targeting and your strategy. Because if going to church is part of the deal, then your target group is of a certain size, and you say to people, yes, you can learn to ring, and we expect you to come to church. Then you have a strategy and a set of tactics to address those people. Very, very different proposition if you're saying to people, bell ringing is a fun hobby, we only do it in church because that's where the bells are located, and actually you're free to ring with us and then go away, we don't care. Views on that are going to vary, and it's probably a controversial point. But if you're saying, who do we want to attract and how do we go about it, that simple fundamental decision at a local level will determine your strategy, your tactics, and how you go about it. So I'm not here to give you answers, but that is a key fundamental point. Moving on. How best to go about it? There are some common themes here. It was mainly thought that the best way to go about it is to actually have something that looks appealing and rewarding. So you actually, words like vibrant, enjoyable, sociable, rewarding, and it was pointed out that if you're successful in that environment, it feeds into itself, you're more committed and you want to go. There's a whole big idea about that kind of atmosphere. And as a ringer of many years standing, I'll just ask you to reflect rhetorically on, is that the kind of atmosphere we've got? There was an idea about recruiting people when things are good. If you want it to look exciting and vibrant and fantastic, recruit when you're on an upwave. Don't wait till everybody's left and you're desperate. And I think that's where this thinking of if you're warm and you have a pulse, we'll take you comes from. Be more selective, recruit on the up. There were some great ideas about tester sessions, no obligation sessions, get people to try it out and see if you mutually like each other, as it were, if you're compatible. I had to laugh. One of the ideas was to have Operation Make Ringing Cool, but that's dead. Dead and gone. It's not. You won't ever hear that again. No, but there was an idea about Operation Viral Marketing or Operation Ambassador. If you want people to do something, peer-to-peer selling, if you like, is a very effective way. So if you want people to think ringing's great, get some people to go out who are like them to say ringing is great. So there's something around viral marketing. Operation Lapsed Ringer came up a lot, or Returning Ringer. Target them and get them back. I'm one. Operation This is a fun and rewarding hobby for everyone. Not very specific. There was also Operation Train the Trainer, because having successfully got people in to learn to ring, you then don't want to hash it up. You know, you train them badly how to handle a bell and you kind of lose them. So an idea about training the trainer, so it's actually tip-top bell handling and tip-top learning was in there as well. There are ideas about the PR, the media, taking ringing to the people and getting out there was very much a big idea. But I think the take-home message about how to go about it is about as vague as who do you want to recruit. I think the answer is it depends. And personally, I think based on what you've all said, what you need to do is to say, decide who your target audience is based on what you need. Work out how to make ringing sound very appealing to that group. And then just go off and sell it to them, is the take-home.
Group B. How do we ensure that we retain the young ringers we want? Well, first of all, we decided we wanted them all. Now, before I move on, before we came today, Sue Ford, my partner, set out a survey of young ringers about what motivates them. We've had 33 filled in. She's correlated all the details and they will be passed on to the powers that be. It's quite detailed, so we can't really talk about it now. We first of all came up with the idea that young ringers are different. They're different age groups as well as different individuals. So we split the 4 questions we asked were these. How do we motivate the 10 to 13-year-olds? How do we motivate the 14 to 17-year-olds? How can we try and ensure a better transition between ringing at home and going on to university? And how can we make branch practices more fun? The main points we came up with were quite different in the morning session when we had all the youngsters in with us, and the afternoon session when we didn't, because they were all in their own forum. For the 10 to 13-year-olds, it seems that it's got to be fun. That is the most important thing of that age group. And they want good teaching at that age group. And they perhaps want you to accommodate them by having ringing practices at different times. I don't know whether you're like me, that you've ever asked a grumpy 11 or 12-year-old to ring and you to actually find they're asleep on the bench because they've done school orchestra and bell ringing in one run. And so Saturday morning practices could be useful. It was also flagged up kids have lots of spare time in their school holidays, and for the younger age group who do get tired in the term, perhaps that's a good thing to work with the school holidays. When we moved on to the 14 to 17-year-olds, and we are generalising, those edges will be blurred, we just had to give it an edge, but obviously every child won't fit into that group neatly. the main thing that came out, it's being given respect. It's very important. Being given positions of responsibility. And also, it's socialising. They want to socialise with their own age group very much at that age group. And they like tours and they like outings particularly. Now, when we're talking about going to university, we spent a lot of time saying what the student masters should do. And then somebody said that some youngsters didn't even know about student ringing at university. We came up with the fact that it's a twofold responsibility. It's a duty of care from the home tower to contact the university ringers, and then following on from that, it's a duty of responsibility, if you like, not exactly a duty of care because it's not in care yet, but to then act on that and contact the ringers. And we've had quite a lot of success with communication by approaching the student ringers, ringing masters, and getting them to email our youngsters that are going up to university. But we also wondered whether all universities might benefit from some central materials or what else do I call them? Materials that they might want to use for Freshers' Weeks and sort of things like that, or advice on the Central Council website when it's revamped to be obviously more gorgeous than it is at the moment. So we thought it was a two-way process. And on the last thing we talked about, branch practices, I'll just quote you a few of the little ideas that came up. Method of the month, so everybody knows what to focus on before they go. And it was pointed out you can use unusual methods which aren't just an exercise in learning a new method, but they can use for skills development. One of the methods quoted was Twister. You can use it as a skills building for STEM and backwork, or a skills builder for getting your roadside paint hunting on 3. Using kaleidoscope ringing, some people weren't very familiar with that, but if you're not, there's a book published by the Central Council for £1.50, so it won't break the bank, and you can find out, and that's for ringing somewhere around call changes and before playing hunt, that sort of level, but it's a skills building. It's fun and it's skills building, so it's a dual purpose. Sometimes it was thought you could just do little things thrown into the branch practices, like, for instance, a whole pull and stand and move roundabout, just for a bit of fun, just to create that wonderful thing called variety. And also, we thought that perhaps a variety of format of the branch practices, different places, different times, different focuses, outings and that sort of thing. So that's it. Thank you.
Our session was about leadership, and I don't have all the notes, so I'll collate those and get them sent out to you. We started with the premise that if the status quo was working, we wouldn't be here. So from that came lots of discussion, and the key thing, which I think was the glue that tied all this fantastic work together, is we need to advocate ringing. We're not leaders, managers, but advocates. We are selling it, and we're selling it not to ourselves. We spend about 80% of the time talking to each other. We now spend 20% of our time talking to ourselves, and 80% of the time talking to 2 key groups. The first one's the church, because they own the hardware. And the second is the community, the customers, the people who listen to us, and the people from where we can get our recruits, from where we can invest in the future. So another thing that came up was hierarchies. We share the jobs. It's not one person leading, it's lots of people doing all the work. And there are all discussions about tower captains who've been there for 1,500 years and don't retire. And the age thing came up. It's not about age, it's about attitude. I know some very middle-aged 20-year-old ringers. And I wonder where they get it from. So we need to change. But the ownership of this actually is not other people, it's us. Key thing from my session was we have to make the changes ourselves so others can see us change, so the community changes. And that's it, under 3 minutes.
Richard was talking about the choir and church choirs and organisations that can assist, and been a representative organisation at national level to a service organisation at that national level that provides the resources that the choirs need and the help that they need. I think that was sort of essentially what he was talking about. From a guiding point of view, we are very keen that our organisation, which is for girls and young women, is led by girls and young women. We have to be there as leaders, and we have to help the girls be able to do what they want to do, and we have to provide them with inspiration. But we try really hard at all levels, from rainbows who are aged 5 to 7, right the way through to our young leaders and our young adult leaders, to make sure that youth participation is a key part of belonging to guiding, so that girls can choose in terms of programme, in terms of activities. We have innovate national forums for girls to come along to and young women to come along to say where they want the programme to go, what they want and how they want guiding to develop. And so we can get guiding's message across to government and all sorts of things. So from that whole sort of ethos of trying to focus on our members, which are our girls, they value being part of an organisation. In order for them to do that, we have to provide really good quality training for our leaders, and we try to be flexible in how we do that, flexible in how we offer everything to our members. We're volunteers, but we do need funding, and we need funding in order to provide good quality resources, and that's at national level and at local level, in order for us to be able to run all the exciting activities that the girls can do and enjoy. Girls really like belonging to guiding. It's their special thing. It's their thing that they come along, they feel welcome, they're part of a little group, they do social stuff, they do adventure, they do discovery. It's for them to do. I'm sure it's the same in scouting. And really, we try very hard to make sure that it's what they want and they stay and they build. They're our next generation. So for you, I think that's key in terms of growing your membership. And they can see progress as they go through the different sections, and they can become part of the wider organisation that's the world's movement of girl guiding and girl scouting, and they grow in terms of leadership, and we provide that growth, those facilities for them to be able to do that. And perception, vision and strategy. Vision of where you want to be and what you want to be doing, and your strategy to get there. And we're doing that at the moment in Girl Guiding Birmingham. We've just done our own vision and strategy for where we want the county to be, and we've got what the county actions are, and then we've got a blank box next to it for the local areas to decide what they want to do in order to help Girl Guiding Birmingham achieve our strategy, and our strategy builds to achieve the Girl Guiding UK strategy, and the vision that we have for girls to develop their potential and be part of their community and part of the wider world as well. So there we are. Branding, all sorts of things, logos. Yeah, I think you said it all. The bits that I heard, I think it's spot on. So just excellent. But there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I don't know.
Talking about new technology. This isn't a sort of summary of everything, it's just one or two of the points which came up during the discussions and which I've selected. One of the points which seem to be sort of very basic to what we're talking about is that a lot of people seem to have an innate fear of technology which was already existing. And there seemed to be a need for not only to understand the technology which was present available, but there was a fear that what happened when it went wrong, how to put it right, we don't want this bit of technology stuck in the corner doing nothing. But people didn't understand it, they didn't know where to go to get help. And there was a cry for assistance from guilds, from the Central Council, for some sort of support with regard to the technology which is available at the moment. We talked a little bit about the use of existing technology. We thought that perhaps not enough use was made of it to demonstrate to the community at large what ringing was about. For example, if we were ringing for a special occasion, perhaps we could have screens in the public areas for them to actually see what's going on as well as hear what's going on upstairs. Several places have got it inside the churches, and perhaps for security reasons they're not outside in the streets or the squares, but I'm sure for special events that could be overcome. There could be a large screen outside and the ringing could be shown. And equally, using the technology we've got, probably that would be very helpful. Again, it's done in some towers. If we could see, whilst we're ringing, what the bell itself is doing, where the stay is sitting, how far the bell goes over, all that sort of thing. That's not done very often. Again, why, I don't know, but that would be very useful. For the future, we talked about what we refer to as the barometer, basically a device so that the amount of effort which goes into ringing the bell could be judged, could be assessed, could be demonstrated, so that not only the length of pull, the amount of pull, the time of the pull, so that a good ringer's style, shall we say, could be compared with those of a learner. And we weren't sure what benefits could come from that, but we're sure there would be benefits. There'd be something which people could actually see how their ringing stroke differed from that of an experienced ringer. And the possibility of some sort of software to help development of rope sight. Rope sight was identified as one of these hurdles which we have to overcome in the learning process. A lot of people seem to have difficulty picking up that skill. There are ways to teach, there are ways to help that learner overcome those skills, to acquire those skills. But it is a hurdle, and if there was something which could help that learner through that process, that would help the teaching generally. We didn't think anything more about how that could be done, but it's just one of the possibilities. And again, how beneficial that would be is something which would have to be discovered once that's done. But that was something for the future. I think that's the salient points.
Last but not least, we have organisation question. Nigel, is it you?
Well, we asked our groups 3 questions, and what I'll do is just quickly go through the sorts of answers that we got. The first one asked the question of whether national strategies for recruitment, training, youth and so on would be a good thing. And we generally got a positive answer to this, that yes, this would be a good thing. There were people that expressed some reservations and caveats. They said, well, we don't want anything that's absolutely prescriptive, we can't lay down the law, it's got to be guidance. They also said we've got to accept we can't have one size fits all, it's got to be locally tailorable. But there was a general feeling that a bit more coherence and across the piece would be a good thing. The second question was about the current structures. The Central Council is a representative body, and the county and diocesan associations, and whether they were actually the right structure going forward for the future. We had very diverse responses to this. These went from, I can't think of a better way of doing it than the Central Council and the current structures, to what I would describe as aggressively negative responses about the existing setup. I think, on balance, there was a view that changes need to be made. Those tended to come around the line of, we think we need a more professional central body, possibly full-time employed people who are able to really drive things professionally, be able to be more reactive, be able to make decisions, but possibly, and it might take some culture change, that the existing structures in terms of diocesan associations on, might be the way through which it could be delivered. There would have to perhaps be some changes in the way of working, but maybe it wasn't the right thing to kind of tear the whole thing up. So overall, I would say, on balance, there was a general view that we did need to have changes, and that something that was a more professional, maybe like some of the sporting bodies or whatever, might be a good thing. I would say there was also a minority view, which said one of the reasons I came into ringing was that it didn't have this sort of thing. So, you know, I think we have to accept that some people like it the way it is. On the other hand, you know, Graham Nam was telling me earlier that the local association here have 15 people that come every month for a meeting and a tea and everything. And when asked why they don't change this, the answer is, well, they like it. His question is, but what about the other 300 people that don't come? and I think that's part of the problem we have to look at here. The final one was, should ringers be prepared to pay more for this demonstrably better environment? The sort of thing that the girl guiding lady described as, you know, a service led from the centre. And there was a great deal of scepticism as to whether ringers were going to be completely tight-fisted in the future, or whether they would be prepared to pay something. I think, again, there was a feeling that, well, maybe ringers would pay a bit more money if they could demonstrably see there was value for money there. But, you know, just asking them to shell out won't work. You know, we really have to show them how it is going to help, how is it going to benefit them, how they're going to get value from it. And in that case, maybe they wouldn't be prepared to do it. So that's it. Just wanted to say, if anyone has any further thoughts afterwards, they can tweet it on the hashtag #ChangeRinging for the future, and I'll pick it up. Thank you.
Thank you for your attention, everybody. We're working through all of that. Really interesting stuff. I'd like to ask first, though, to Kate, the President of the Central Council, to answer this and speak to it.
Thank you, Alva. I'm not sure I can answer those points at the moment. I think for me, I'm the sort of person that has to go away and think about this quite a lot and talk to some of you and talk to ordinary ringers, grassroots ringers back home and let it sort of settle in my mind a little bit to work out what it all means, and I'm sure that you will all want to be doing a lot of that as well. But what I want to say is, haven't we had a fantastic day, yes? Yeah. I have enjoyed it far more than I thought I would, actually, and I mean, I thought it would be good, but it's so much better. What I've liked particularly has been, in all the sessions I've been to, I guess this might not be true of all of them, but certainly all the ones I went to, such a positive and constructive approach that everybody's taken to the questions that they've been asked to address and the issues. Ringers have a reputation, and we all know them, for being a bit moany and groany and miserable, and I haven't seen any of that around today, so thank you so much for that. That's been fantastic. Also, I have had the pleasure in my professional career of going to an awful lot of professional conferences in quite posh hotels with waiters wandering around carrying food for you and that sort of thing. And I have never seen anything that's run to time so well as this, or where the lunch has been served pretty quickly so that everybody can get back to their next session, and such good value for money. I mean, it's just amazing. And Peter Dale is going to do a roundup vote of thanks to people shortly, but he is at the core of this that's made it happen, and it's just been brilliant, so thank you to Peter. Right, now, a couple of other points. Next steps. We're not all going to go home and this is the end of it. What's going to happen next? Well, first of all, Elva is going to put together No, sorry. First of all, somebody here who is a mysterious anonymous person is going to be writing a report for the Ringing World, apparently. So that hopefully will be fairly soon. And also, I hope fairly soon, Elva is going to put together some huge document that seems to be growing by the minute as we hear of more things going into it, which is basically all the outputs from the various sessions from today, and she's going to circulate this to all of you because we've got all your email addresses, so that will be sent round to everybody so that you've got all the outputs from today. It's obviously going to be a little bit of work to put that together, so it's not going to be instantaneous, but hopefully that will help you take back what you've heard today to your local areas to think about next steps in your area. Then there's going to be a small group put together to take this work forward. This is going to be under the leadership of Chris Mew, the Central Council Vice President, who unfortunately has had to leave earlier this afternoon for a family wedding, but he's very keen and enthusiastic to take that forward. Elva is going to be continuing with this work, working with Chris, and Peter Dale, so all the people that you've seen today leading some of the work here. Also, either Norman Mattingly or somebody else from the Ringing Centres Committee, because Ringing Centres either have or should have a key role to play going forward in this work. And also Andy Reeve, who you've heard from today. Not a lot of us perhaps knew Andy before, but I'm very pleased to say that he's going to be joining this group. He's not a Central Council person, but he's a ringer with lots of good ideas who will add a lot of value to that work. A lot will happen between now and next May as that group gets going, and their first target of reporting, not doing anything, because I hope they will do a lot fairly quickly, but their first reporting target will be a report going to the Central Council meeting in May, which hopefully will find its way into the Ringing World, either with the Central Council papers or in some other way that will be widely disseminated. Your role as a group, because everybody has come together so well today, that it seems very likely that you will want to play a continuing part in this work going forward, as well as your local delivery that I talked about first thing this morning. When Elva sends out the enormous paper that she's going to pull together, she is going to ask you to let her know if you would like to be part of the work going forward, probably as a sort of sounding board group. I think the small group will decide how to use you, but when they come up with ideas, they can bounce them out to you, because you will understand where we're coming from, because you've been through the process today, and you will be able to contribute to that group's work as it develops. And I particularly hope that the young people here will carry forward the work in that way as well, and will contribute their views as the work goes forward. And I'm not sure that there's really any more than that I can say at the moment, but my head is buzzing, and I'm really looking forward to taking the work forward and seeing how it develops. So I think on that note, it's back to Elva. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions on process, next steps, what you have to do? Yeah?
The group that you've just been talking about, has it got any young people on it?
Young people. We'll invite youngsters to participate fully and actively, I can assure you. We have them all there. Any other questions? No? Okay. I'd like to just ask you to have a think about it for yourself, chat to your neighbour, just turn to your neighbour and ask yourself two questions. One is, what's going to get in the way of us moving forward? We're talking about the word that's been used, transforming our world of ringing. What's going to get in the way? And the next question, what are you going to take on for yourself in terms of back with your district or your committees, etc., or in terms of your tower,